So today I will cover something that honestly came to my mind and I didn't find anyone covering this topic online, which is organizing your AI API calls or AI prompting in general. So if you build applications or if you build automations on things like Zapier or Make or whatever platform, at one point, the more you build, the more things get messy and complicated. For example, for me personally, I have at least 12 automations where I use Perplexity API calls to get some results out of it. And I find myself today, whenever I need to do a change or whenever they drop a new model or I need to do some modification to my prompting of those API calls, I need to go to these 12 automations one by one on Zapier, open that Zap, go to that step, modify it, and go to the next one, next one, next one. So today I will give you a method that will help you organize your AI within your applications or automations or whatever need you have for them. Again, this is one way of doing it. And if you have ideas or you figured out a different or maybe better way to do that, please leave me a comment in the comment section. And hey, if you're watching my videos, enjoying them, why not hit that subscribe button? With this, let's jump right in. So what you're looking at is simply an Airtable database. And this is the method that I found, is creating a database for all the AI API calls that you use in your automations or application or whatever the use is. So basically you have all the details needed for any AI API call stored in one spot. And every time you want to use that API call, you just pull that record from your Airtable and then use it in your code. If you're doing that, I don't do that, or use it in your automation like I do in Zapier and Make. So this works across the board. Now, probably more technical people would do it in a different type of database, but I find Airtable API like something super, honestly. It works like a clock and I never have issues. So I can keep it here and use it whenever I need it at whatever application. So the great thing about this, so if you look at the database here, what I've done basically is gave it an auto-populated kind of field. So basically, whenever I add a new automation or a new step, I get a certain code, but then I have it as text because I wanted, regardless if I decide to delete a step or add a step, I don't want this one to be affected. This is, let's say, my search field. When I go to automation to pull the record, I use this second column. So this is just for reference. I can hide it. I don't need to really see it. This is the important one. And it just is a reference number for each AI call I have and designed for me in each record. Okay. So for example, the first record is about a LinkedIn post automation. So I use it when I do some research on a topic that I want to post to LinkedIn on an automation. So it's not something I use manually. So all of this is a part of automations. So as I said, the first one is the search field. The second one is basically just a reference I created. You can do it even better than this. You can have a link to your automation or a link to whatever location or directory you're keeping your file. So if you're coding, probably that is the way to go. But for me, the name is enough. It just tells me which automation I'm using. So when I go to Zapier, I'll just know exactly this step or this record is contained within which Zap in Zapier. Okay. Now, the second part is the AI name. So what is the AI I'm using? So you can see here, mostly it's Perplexity. And then I have one which is Anthropic Claude. Now, I would do this for ChatGPT, but I've used it so much, so it will needs a good amount of time dedicated from me to really also list and include my ChatGPT steps here. Now, there's an advantage with ChatGPT which reduces the need for this, and it's the fact that you can use an assistant rather than just a conversation step in your automation. If you use an assistant, that's a super powerful thing that they already rolled out a year and a half ago. What they've done really right in OpenAI is that when they created that assistant model, they gave you a location in OpenAI's website where you can go see all your assistants, modify them, modify the prompting for the assistant, modify the model, modify the functions, add even schemas and third-party functions. So you can pretty much do what I'm trying to do here from the assistant side. Now, there are certain steps I'm using the normal conversation, those are the ones that I would probably bring to this database when I have the time. So the second step, after you set the name of the AI that you're using, just for you to remember to know what you're really touching here, then you have the model name. This is like one of the most things that change when it comes to AI. And it's moving fast. If you track AI, if you do lots of automation, you know how fast things are moving. Every 2 months, there's new models across the different AI companies. So you want to have that feature here where I can simply put a new model, copy and paste it across all my sheet. And automatically, I know for a fact that all my automations just got upgraded with the new model. And I don't need to go step by step and do that. The second thing is the system prompt and then the user prompt. And not all API calls have both. Some of them just have a user, some of them just have a system prompt. Regardless, this is just a name. For example, Perplexity has both. So if that is available or if that is required or you need it in your use cases when you do your automation, well, you have both fields created here. And simply, if I want to modify, whatever automation I have and which has an AI call, I want to change the system prompt, I'll just double click, go through it, change it here. Automatically, it will change once that automation runs because it will always get the latest update here. So I can change it here, don't need to go to any tool. And this thing will allow me to really, if I want to upgrade my prompting, I want to spend time on that. I don't need to go into a messy situation, opening many zaps or many automations or even code if I'm doing that. I just come to this sheet, I do the work here, and I know automatically while I do it here, it's already done in my automations or my applications. Now, there are other parts that you can add, but for me, I made it limited to certain aspects. One of them is the temperature. So even the temperature is one of the main parameters that you need to play with in AI to get the results that you're looking for. So I need to calibrate it from time to time. So I've added here as a field as well. So when I pull the data from Airtable, I have a field or data point for temperature that I can plug in my automation, which I'll show you in a second how that actually look in practice. And last thing, okay, I just put max tokens. I don't use it, but I thought, okay, maybe in the future, in certain cases, I would want to basically cap that, limit that. Maybe I will not need it because things are getting cheaper, but I just kept it in case I need it. In the future, I can add more columns, more parameters that might come up that we need to use in such AI API calls. Now, before I move to the automation and show you how this looks in practice, I want to show you something that I've done. Now, there is a risk here that I figured out a way to cover. And the risk is if you depend on your automations totally to store all the AI calls information in a sheet. And Airtable, you can do a Control Z or Command Z if you make a mistake, but I just do not want to take that risk where I leave my computer open. Maybe one of my kids just comes to my computer and deletes everything. I want to make sure there's always a safe store for it. So what I've done, and this is just for your preference and do it in the way that you think is suitable. Maybe you have a better way, write me a comment in the comment section. I created a hidden table. I called it, you can see it here, I called it safe copy. And basically it's a direct copy of what I have in the prompt base. Now I want this on weekly basis to populate based on the recent. So I always have a safe copy of the most recent prompts that I have in this original prompt base. And what I've done in Airtable, and this is why Airtable is amazing, is I created a simple automation that I'll show you now. And it has some kind of their code, maybe it's less than code, more syntax to create such an automation. So if you go to the automation tab on Airtable, you will see the automation I've created. And it's basically a schedule. So it will run on a Thursday. And I created it to run on a early morning. So nothing is happening on Airtable at that time. And then I run a script and I'll put on the script on the screen. It's straightforward. It's something easy for you just to read and copy. And basically what I do here is, I look at the copy, I go over the record, I delete them one by one. So I want to clear out my page. So this is the first thing I do. Clean the safe copy, delete everything. So if I test now, you'll see everything deleted. So let me test it for the sake of showing you that. So now I'm running the test. Once it executes, you'll find that my screen is blank. My my save table is blank and there's nothing on it. Okay, so test ran successfully. Now, if we just go back and I go back to the data, I go to the save copy, you can see there is no records. All of it got deleted. Now let's go back to the automation. I'll take you to the next step, which will go to the prompt data that I created, and line by line, it will scan it and copy it into the save table. This way, I make sure always I have my prompts, my database safe and with a copy. If in case anything goes wrong, I have that hidden safe database to go to. And you can simply pick up this code piece from the screen and just take a picture of it, and then you can copy it from your mobile. And by the way, I don't know how to do this. I just went to ChatGPT. I asked it, I want some code. I have this database. I want a code to delete all the fields, and then I want a code to recreate them as part of an automation. Actually, it told me how to basically structure this automation. So I got the code straight out of ChatGPT. I didn't do anything. So I don't know how to do these things. So you can do it yourself. So it ran successfully. Again, I ran it from here directly. So if we go back to the database again, you will find everything populated here. This is an extra I'm just giving, so no one will hate me if they do it this way and they lose their data. So this way you keep things safe and you have your database for all your API to manage it from one location. And you can't imagine how this made my life super easy, because in recent days I'm doing more work. The whole concept of automation is to take time off your back. I'm doing lots of work on my Zaps just to update these things. Now I don't need to worry about them. I just come to this sheet, do my editing here, everything else is done. So let's go to one quick example of a Zap and look how that works. So I'll go to this Zap. This is basically a Zap that will create a blog post out of an Airtable, different database. Of course, I just put an overview, what I want to talk about. It will go online, do research for me, and this is where Perplexity comes in, and it will create that blog. If you're interested about such a topic, write a comment in the comment section, and I'll be more than happy to give you this automation, which is super powerful. You can create 100 blogs about certain topic in literally 10 minutes if this is your thing. Forget about the other steps. The one step you need to look at here is the Airtable find record step. So I add step, and this again works if you're doing it in code, so you have to code the API call, but definitely works in Make and Zapier. So I'm showing it on Zapier, but you can do it on Make. So what you do after you create your database, you build everything there. Probably you're going to have to copy paste from your actual automations that you've created. But then you select the base, select the table, the search by field, you select that field that I showed you with the code, and then, okay, this Zap refers to the record of AI6, where all the information is stored there, and then you need an exact match, and you do the search. Now, once you do the search, the output, let me edit the Zap so you can see just a test of the output. Once it runs, the data will be the actual fields populated from the Airtable. So you'll get the system prompt, you'll get the temperature, you'll get the user prompt, and everything else you've stored there. So now you have them to use them in the next steps. Now, something really important, let me go for a second back to the database. Whenever you build those kind of database structures, you need to design them carefully and a little bit differently. So if you have any dynamic fields, you need to leave those fields at the end. So here, if you see, for example, the system prompt has a date. I need to put a date in. So the whole prompt is on the top. The last thing is the date. Why? Because I can actually bring this as a dynamic field from the Airtable step into Zapier, and I'll add after it another dynamic step or dynamic variable, which gets the information for the date. If you put that within brackets inside the text, I tested that, it doesn't work, although it makes sense that it does. Anyways, so here it goes the same. So I have a topic for the LinkedIn post, so I have it at the end. So for the following topic, and then in Zapier, I'll show you now, I will have the topic there. So that's something that you need to a little bit modify if you follow my method here. So going back here, so we have the information, and then one thing I think, which is needed to be done whenever, especially when you do API calls like the ones that you do on Zapier for Perplexity, where you need to have a body and like it's a fully built API call. I found that many times you will run into errors because of the JSON structure. I found an amazing way to solve this, which is by the super tool in Zapier, Code by Zapier. There are other ways to do it in other tools, but nothing beats doing it in Code by Zapier. And basically it is getting all those fields. So you can see here, I have the field that comes from the database. I have another field that comes from somewhere else. Here I have the field, the user prompt, and then I have other things coming from other records or other locations. And then I run a code that does apparently something that is well known in the coding world. I didn't know, I just went, I asked Claude to give me this code, which is called stringify. I think stringify the text. So basically it will take the text. If it has anything that could disrupt the JSON call, it will make it into a string that is clean, that will not create any issues. And for my use case, I wanted to do that for 2 blocks, whatever goes with the system prompt and whatever goes with the user prompt, as you see here. And I told Claude, I need this code to do this process for me, and it proposed this library. And I have 2 inputs, text input 1 and 2, and I put the fields related to them, and then I run the code. The code is super simple. If you're interested, tell me, I can pin it to the first comment, but it's literally 6 lines. It just calls that library and asks to return a certain value, and then goes through the first input, the second input, and then it actually executes the function, which is stringified input 1, input 2, and then it returns the output. So even if you saw it on the screen and it's clear to you, I think you can just copy it straight from the screen. Just tell me in the comment section if you want me to share this code. I will put it in the comment section. It will stop any issue if you're facing it already today or in the future with your API calls when it comes to AI or any other use. Now, once I clean it, basically, this is how my Perplexity API call looks. It's very simple because everything is pulled from the table. So I'm pulling the model name from the database that I showed you. And then the system prompt content is coming from the Code by Zapier step, where basically I do it into a stringify kind of code that I mentioned. And the same goes for the user prompt. And then the temperature comes straight from the database, and I run it, and it runs successfully and smoothly every time. With this, again, everything I need to do today, any future AI I put as part of my automation or any application I probably build, it will come in here, because I can always modify. When people scramble to go and upgrade their systems with the newest model, it will take me 3 seconds. I'll just copy and paste it across all my cells here, and I'm already upgraded. I want to change whatever prompting I have here. I can do that quickly. Temperature, the same thing. And having it in a database gives you lots of options. For example, I can put this in a Google Sheet, and then I can ask Claude to create a code that will go through all the prompts and improve them. I mean, I won't do that, but having it in one place will give you lots of options. So this is pretty much it for today. I hope this helped you. If this is a problem you're facing, please write me a comment in the comment section. If you have a better way, definitely help me improve if you think there's an improvement. And hey, don't forget to subscribe, and have a great day.